I was 24 when I took the job. It was 2019. I'd just moved to a new city, knew nobody, needed money fast. The posting was simple enough: overnight security, a decommissioned medical facility on the edge of town, shut down sometime in the early 2000s, pending demolition. They just needed someone to walk the floors a few times a night, check the doors, log anything unusual, and sit at the desk the rest of the time. Easy money, that's what I told myself. The facility was called Hargrove Medical Center. 4 stories, 2 wings, a basement level that was supposedly sealed off. The kind of building that looks smaller from the outside than it actually is. When I pulled into the parking lot for my first shift, I sat in my car for a few minutes and just stared at it. Every window was dark. The sign out front still had the name on it, but a few of the letters were missing. It looked like something from a movie set. Except it wasn't. I had to actually go inside. My supervisor was a guy named Dale. He showed me around on the first night. Dale was the kind of person who had clearly been doing this long enough that nothing bothered him anymore. Or at least, that's how he wanted to come across. He walked fast, talked fast, kept the tour short, handed me a flashlight, a radio, and a clipboard with a checklist on it. He said if anything fell off, radio in. He said it like it was a formality, like nothing ever fell off. He also told me one thing before he left that first night. He said, "Don't go to the basement." I asked why. He said the stairwell down there was structurally compromised. Last thing the company needed was a liability issue. That made sense. I didn't push it. He left at midnight. And I was alone. The first 2 weeks were uneventful. Genuinely. I'd do my rounds, check the doors, log everything clear, and spend the rest of the night at the front desk scrolling my phone. The building was uncomfortable, the way all abandoned places are. That kind of quiet that isn't really quiet. The HVAC system would kick on randomly and rattle through the ceiling. Doors that were latched would shift in their frames when the temperature dropped. I got used to it faster than I expected. After a while, it just became background noise. The first thing I noticed that I couldn't explain away was around the 3rd week. I was doing my second patrol of the night, somewhere around 3 in the morning, East Wing, 2nd floor. There was a room at the end of the hall, a supply closet. The door was always shut, always. I had checked it every single night for 3 weeks, and it had never once been open. That night, it was open. Not wide open, just slightly, maybe 4 or 5 inches, enough to notice. I pushed it open with my foot and shined my flashlight inside. Just shelves, old equipment covered in dust sheets, a mop bucket in the corner. Nothing. I pulled the door shut, made sure it latched, and kept walking. Logged it as a door found unsecured, left it at that. But it happened again 2 nights later. Same door, same few inches. I told myself the latch was faulty. The 3rd time, I stood outside that door for a long moment before I opened it. Same room, same shelves, same dust. But this time I noticed something I hadn't before. The dust on the floor near the back shelf was disturbed. Not a lot, just enough that the smooth layer coating everything else wasn't there anymore. Like something had been moved. Or someone had been standing there. I backed out of the room and finished my patrol faster than usual that night. I almost said something to Dale when he did his check-in call the following morning. Almost. But I knew how it was going to sound. Door keeps opening by itself, boss. Dust looks weird." I could already hear how he'd respond, so I kept it to myself. The radio was the next thing. About a month into the job, front desk, around 2 a.m. The radio was just sitting there on the desk next to me. I wasn't using it, no reason to. But at some point, it clicked. That soft, static click a radio makes when someone keys the transmitter on the other end. I picked it up, said hello. Nothing came back. Figured it was interference, set it back down. 20 minutes later, it clicked again. I picked it up, waited, and then, very faintly, I heard something come through. It wasn't words exactly, it was more like a breath, long, slow, the kind of exhale you'd hear from someone who was trying to stay quiet. Then it cut out. I radioed Dale immediately, told him I was getting interference, weird sounds, possibly someone else on the frequency. He told me it happened sometimes, said other facilities in the area used the same band, signals crossed. Told me to ignore it if it wasn't a voice. It was a voice. I just didn't want to argue with him about it at 5 a.m. After that, I started paying attention to things I hadn't before. A chair in one of the old patient rooms had moved a few feet from where I'd seen it the night before. A window latch on the 3rd floor that I was certain I'd checked was unlocked when I came back through. Small things. The kind of things that are easy to dismiss one at a time, but a lot harder to ignore when they keep happening. I started marking things, leaving a piece of tape on a door handle, setting an object a specific way so I could tell if it had been touched. And things were being touched. Not every night, but enough. There was one hallway on the 3rd floor, the far end of the north wing, that I started dreading. I couldn't tell you exactly why. Nothing had happened there specifically. It was just a hallway. But every time I walked it, I had this overwhelming feeling that I was being watched from behind. I'd turn around and there'd be nothing, just the dark corridor and the row of closed doors. But the feeling never went away. I started walking that section faster than the rest of the route, without even realizing I was doing it. About 6 weeks in, I found the food. Ground floor patrol, old nursing station near the East Wing entrance. I'd walked past that counter dozens of times, but that night one of the cabinet doors was slightly open and I went to shut it out of habit. When I crouched down, I saw them. 2 cans of food, a tin of crackers, a plastic water bottle that was mostly full. They weren't old. The water bottle still had condensation on the outside. I stood up, looked down both ends of the hallway. Nothing. I radioed Dale right then and there, no waiting, no second guessing, told him exactly what I found and exactly where. He went quiet. First time I'd heard him go quiet. Then he told me to finish my patrol, go back to the desk, and lock the lobby doors. Said he'd look into it. He never followed up. I asked him about it the next morning, and he said it was left behind by a contractor doing structural assessments. Said it had been dealt with. I asked who the contractor was. He changed the subject. That was the moment I stopped believing anything Dale told me. I went back to that cabinet the next night. The food was gone. But there was something else there now. A single piece of torn paper. Nothing written on it. Just a strip that looked like it had been ripped from something larger. I don't know why, but holding that piece of paper was one of the most unsettling moments of the entire experience. It felt like a message, even though it wasn't one. 3 nights later, I heard the footsteps. 2nd floor, East Wing, First patrol, around 1 a.m. I just turned the corner at the end of the hall when I heard them. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the floor above me. Third floor, north wing, the section I already hated. I stopped walking, stood completely still. They continued for about 10 seconds, then stopped. I waited another full minute. Silence. I finished my patrol faster than I ever had, got back to the desk, sat there staring at the stairwell door for the rest of the night. I didn't go back up. I told myself it was the building settling. I told myself that every night for the next 4 nights. Because I heard those footsteps every single night. Same floor, same wing, same slow, deliberate pace. Always stopping right around the same time, like whoever it was knew exactly when to stop. On the 5th night, I made a decision I still think about. Instead of going back to the desk after my first patrol, I went up to the 3rd floor, stood at the entrance to the north wing, turned my flashlight off, and waited in the dark. I waited for almost 20 minutes, and then I heard it. Footsteps. But this time they weren't ahead of me, they were behind me. I spun around and turned my flashlight on. The hallway behind me was empty. I swung the beam down the north wing. Nothing. I stood there with my heart slamming against my ribs, and I made myself stay still. And then my radio clicked. No voice this time, just that same slow exhale I'd heard weeks ago, except this time it was close. Not through the speaker the way radio audio sounds. Close, like someone standing nearby. I turned the flashlight toward every door in that hallway, one by one. All of them closed, all of them still. I left the building. Sat in my car in the parking lot and called Dale directly. Told him I was done, that there was someone inside that building and I wasn't going back in. He told me I was letting the environment get to my head, told me the building did that to people. He said it like he'd said it before, like he'd had this exact conversation before. I quit the next morning. Turned in the clipboard, the flashlight, and the radio. About 2 months later, I found out, through someone who had worked the day shift at that facility years before it closed, that the basement level was never sealed off. It was accessible. It had always been accessible. Dale had just told every overnight guard the same thing. Don't go to the basement. Structural issue. Liability concern. The same words, every time. I think about that a lot. I think about what was down there. I think about who was down there. I think about that piece of torn paper and what it was torn from. I think about the footsteps that came from behind me when I was certain no one else was on that floor. And I think about the fact that Dale never seemed surprised by any of it. Not once. He always had an answer ready. Every single time.